Hey, welcome back. We're going to talk about color photos versus black and white photos a little bit today. So as you look through your camera roll, sometimes you need to start training your eye on which photos would look good in black and white versus which ones really should stay color. So we're going to kind of talk you through that, give you a few tips. So as we go through this, a few things to think about. One, contrast. All of photography comes back to good contrast. But a successful black and white photo does need some really good contrast. So you can see the difference between the whites and the darks. Also, if you have a photo that you took that you like, but the color is distracting and you can't fix that in post-production and editing, or if color is not the main subject, then that one might be a good candidate to switch over to black and white. Third option is if you're making things into black and white, mood is a big consideration. You can really do a lot with black and white photography in terms of creating a mood. And then 4, range of tones. You do want to make sure that you have a good range of values and tones. And we're going to talk a minute about beware of colors. Sometimes when we look at color, we don't really think of them in hue or tone or value. And once those colors are transferred into black and white and shades of gray, then all of a sudden some colors become the same value, the same shade of gray. And I have an example of that coming up for you. And then number 5, if you have some really great highlights that you really want to pop and you got good contrast, then that might be one that you make into black and white. So let's talk real quickly about that color and value concept. So when you look at these, obviously you have the orange on the left and the blue on the right. They look very differently when you're looking at them in color. This is if you take that slide and just convert it to pure grayscale mode. So this shows you how, the photos are still definitely, different, or the colors are still different shades of gray, but they're starting to merge together. They're becoming really similar. A lot different than, obviously, if you had the color orange and blue versus grayscale mode. So you do have to be careful that some colors end up being the same shade of gray. All right, let's just run through a few photos real quick. All right, is this photo going to look successful as black and white, or do we want to keep it color? Remember, go through the criteria. It has good contrast. We got some good lights and darks going on. There's some interesting texture. The colors are nice. Is the color the main subject? Not necessarily. So when you look at it in black and white, it still works, right? This could work really well as a black and white photo. It has a good range of values from the highlight to the darks. Okay. Versus this one. This one, color is driving it a little bit more, but there's a couple other things that are going on. What I want you to pay attention to is this right here, this really dark shadow. Because once that's converted, it's going to get really flat. And then what I want you to look at is right here in the sky versus right here in the sky. When we switch it to black and white mode, all of a sudden, it looks like it was badly photoshopped. It looks like we put in a cloudy sky over here, and then we left a plain sky over here, because they look just completely different. Plus, we have this really black shadow right here. So, this is an example, in color, it looked just fine with some of these, different values, but all of a sudden now we have too much of that silhouette effect going on over here, and the sky just looks weird. All right, side-by-side comparison. On this one, the black and white works. So you have to make a decision as a photographer. Do you want the yellowy orange contrasting with the blue back here? Okay. You just have to make that choice. Do you like this better as color, or do you like it better as black and white? And that's for you to decide. All right, is this going to be successful as black and white? No. Right up here, this, you have white and a light gray, and that's it. There's not a lot of contrast up there. There's not a lot of interest. It's out of focus. There's a lot of things going on, but just even looking at the lack of the range of values, it's better down here, but we still don't have a good photo. All right, compared to this one, this angle of it, we got a little bit more of a range of values, And also now you can see the light and the shadow on the texture. So when we convert that, all of a sudden you have this, you have this, you have this back here. So it's a lot more successful. Okay, side by side. You kind of know when you look at this one in color, you can kind of tell what it's going to look like in black and white. All these photos are just converted to black and white, like grayscale mode. They are not edited yet besides that. So all these photos, I'm just kind of showing you how you could go through your camera roll and identify ones that you actually do want to take next step. And we're going to talk about editing in black and white in the next video. All right, this one, because of this highlight and shadow on this first one, this works, right? But you have to decide. This is a good example of one of those, the color being distracting. The color on this, between the greens and purples and blues, if you edited this color right here, you know, you can draw out a little bit more of that color and it would look really pretty. But this back here, this really vibrant kind of yellowy green, is kind of competing for attention. So when you throw this into black and white, this is going to maintain your area of focus a little bit better. But, you know, you can also crop in on this part and pull out the color. So you do have to make a choice. Do you want the color? Do you not want the color? And then you have to move forward and edit specifically for that. Okay. This one, same thing. It looks like it should work, right? But what happens is when we do this, because there's so much more interest on this front leaf right here, there's this jagged edge, there's texture, there's light, there's shadow. This becomes more of the focal point instead of this. Okay, that front leaf is just too interesting. So we just got to kind of think that through. All right, same with this one. Will this be successful? No, it's not a good black and white photo. Some of you might think it looks just fine. But the problem is that this is dirt, because this has really good high contrast. It's got light and dark. It's got texture. I'm looking at the dirt just as much as I am as the subject matter, and I shouldn't be doing that. If this is my subject matter, I need to keep my eye on that. All right, same thing here. It's a mushroom growing on campus, and, you know, in theory, the black and white one works. But the grass is competing for attention. It has more texture and it has more dark areas than the top of the mushroom does. So the mushroom ends up being kind of flat right in here. You can kind of see a little bit of that condensation like the dew on it. But if I was going to edit these and make them stronger, I think I would stick with the color version. Also, the kind of orange and green combination is kind of a nice combination to work with color. All right, same thing. This one, great texture, right? So does it work as black and white? It does. Me personally, I think I would keep it as color and do a little bit of editing to tone this down and kind of make this like orangey kind of pop out, just because this texture and then this stuff back here, they're kind of running together. This completely works as a black and white photo, and I would probably go back and edit this one a little bit more carefully to really make things pop. But there's a color version of this that I would really like to develop too. So the answer is yes, this totally works as a black and white photo. When you go through your criteria, it has good contrast. You know, color is not just the important thing onto this. I can make this into more of a mood photo, you know, when I edit the black and white a little bit. So it goes through all the criteria. Okay, not the most interesting photo. The color is a little bit of pop. Black and white. You know, it works. It's not a great photo, but it works as black and white. Contrast especially. All right, let's talk about a couple more and then we're done. So same thing. We have contrast with the foam and the waves. A little bit of color in the sky, but we really need that blue of the surfboard. Right now, the blue and the figure are merging together and just making one shape instead of two shapes between the surfboard and the figure. Versus this one. If we have this, this works black and white. We got the white of the foam against the dark reflected part of the wet sand. The sky actually pops a lot more in black and white. Okay, so this works. All right, same thing. We got this leaf on campus, and it's got good contrast. It's got repetition, we got lines, and then this weird bit of the plant that looks like a piece of string, but it's actually part of the plant, is really, really bright white contrast to it. So there's a lot of potential on that for black and white photo for sure. Go in and do a little more careful editing on that one. This one, by now, should be a no-brainer. There's light and there's dark. There's contrast, there's texture. So when we pop that into black and white mode, definitely works as black and white photo. You may still like it better as a color photo, but it works for both. A little more editing to do, but this is just talking you through how you can start looking at the color versions and just try to see the black and white version in there. So that way you can choose which ones you want to go in, do some careful editing, which we're going to talk about in the next video. All right, that's it for now.